Happy birthday, Gung Gung.
Happy birthday, Baba.
李小龙是我心目中永远的功夫大师。
Just want to wish a special happy 80th birthday to the legend Bruce Lee.
Happy birthday, Bruce Lee.
80 years of Bruce Lee. Wow, what an inspiration.
You were one of my all-time idols.
The hero for me since I was a little kid.
One of the reasons that I got into entertainment, the reason I wanted to make movies, the reason I wanted to, be an action hero.
Bruce taught me to believe in magic, the magic of oneself.
He gave me hope, a faith, a reason to keep going, and a path, a journey.
You are the compass that so many of us follow.
One thing I must say that inspires me most about Bruce Lee is the way of life. It's how we want to live, how we treat each other as human beings from all walks of life.
I am who I am today because of you.
You taught me to be focused, to be confident, and to be like water.
You've had a monumental impact on my life. Growing up, watching you almost every weekend, Saturday TVs was a staple in my household.
Growing up with immigrant parents, we lived off of Bruce Lee films, and I know it meant a lot to my father to be able to show us these films and have our culture and our identity and to see us on screen.
You saw me through that screen, you captured my imagination, and you taught me, and you're still teaching me to this day.
Bruce Lee, as an independent creator, has shown us and shown Hollywood that our authenticity is stronger than their stereotypes.
It's so hard to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to change you, and one of the most important things Bruce Lee has delivered is to be himself and to be real, which is to express yourself.
You're a legend in my eyes, and many more. Wish I could have met you, wish I could have just, had a conversation with you. He's been one of the people that have been consistently in my life when I've needed him.
Thank you for providing the stepping stones for me to step on and for many others to follow.
If I had to think of one word to describe him, it would be hero.
Greatness.
Resiliency.
Dignified.
Perseverance.
Fierce.
Confidence.
Swag.
Inspiration.
Father. And for me, it would be Grandpa.
Happy 80th birthday, Bruce Lee.
Happy 80th birthday.
Happy birthday, Bruce Lee.
Happy birthday.
Thank you for inspiring a lot, Guru Bruce Lee.
Be water, my friend.
Thank you, Bruce. We love you. Appreciate everything.
Happy 80th. I really wish you were here to have it with us.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Bruce.
Happy birthday, Bruce Lee.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy 80th birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, old friend. All of our lives have been made better because of you.
Happy birthday, Bruce Lee, my hero, the hero of so many. Good evening, Los Angeles. Good day, the rest of the world, or wherever you are. Hello and welcome to the Bruce Lee tribute for his 80th anniversary here at the Asian World Film Festival. We are thrilled to have so many great guests tonight. You will discover them one by one, but I would like to thank first and foremost Shannon Lee to grace us tonight with her presence, and director Bao Nguyen. And I would like to introduce our two moderators tonight, great friends, wonderful moderators. Mark Dacascos, I don't think I really need to introduce him because the whole world knows him. But yes, Mark Dacascos, actor, director, and stuntman, and Professor Michael Berry, head of the UCLA Asian Studies. And I'm going now to leave the floor to you two guys, and let's enjoy the evening. And thank you to all for being here.
Thank you, George. And thank you, world, for joining us. Professor Berry, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Mark. It's an honor to be here on stage or the virtual stage with you to host this event. And
likewise, sir.
You know, we have so many incredible guests lined up for today. It's I really want to get into it, but before I do, Mark, you've had an incredible kind of personal story. You knew Brandon, your father,
ran a martial arts school around the same time as Bruce Lee. I'm wondering, before we bring in our guests,
Yes.
you could maybe share some of your personal stories about the impact Bruce Lee had on your life and Brandon had on your life.
Absolutely. Well, my father told me that he knew Bruce Lee. And, everybody wants to say they knew Bruce Lee. But then Shannon's mom, Linda, wrote the book. And she wrote a little bit about my father's interaction with her husband. And it's in here. So, Linda, thank you so much, because now I believe my dad. but I love this book. And my dad was one of the other Chinese Kung Fu teachers in the Bay Area in the 60s. I think one of the only other ones, other than Bruce Lee, teaching Kung Fu to non-Asian people. And so some of the situations that Bruce Lee had with, fellow Asians in terms of not wanting to teach, non-Asians, my father had as well. So it's really cool because Linda Lee actually writes about that in the book. And then, of course, I have this book, which is, this is maybe my third copy over the years. And now I have Be Water, My Friend by Shannon Lee. And I'm telling you, Professor Barry, just reading, you too, yes. Just reading Shannon's introduction, I had to check myself because I love her father so much. And she just brought what I feel like the essence, the spirit of her father in her own words, so, there's that connection of the three books, but then also, of course, because my father was teaching at the same time as Bruce, they became friends. And then when he passed away, there was a world tour that Linda Lee and some martial artists did. And I believe it was in honor of Bruce Lee. And they traveled around the world. And my mother and father were two of the guests. And they became friends. So two really quick stories, both with Brandon, one with Shannon. So Linda Lee comes with Brandon and Shannon to our house in Colorado. This is way back when. And I'm a few years older than Shannon, but I think she was maybe 5 or 6 years old. And Brandon and I were about 9 and 10. My brother, Craig, and Shannon were making mud pies in front of our house, mud pies. And I don't know if it was Shannon or my brother, but they decided they'd sell these mud pies for real money. I started laughing, but for Brandon, he's so sweet. He said, okay. And I remember us giving quarters to Shannon and my brother Craig for these mud pies, right? The heart of Brandon. The other story real quick, there was, of course, the big bully in our neighborhood. And we used to play touch football all the time. And, I'm not sure if it was outright cheating, but he kind of forced his decisions on certain things. And we played, and Brandon, the young man said one thing and Brandon said the other. And I hate to say it, I was hoping they were going to fight because I thought, well, I can't see Bruce Lee fight in person, but I'll see Brandon Lee go, But the cool thing about Brandon was, he was much smaller than the bigger guy, but he stood his ground and he said, no, this is not right. It's like this. And he was so solid and grounded. And the other guy said, you're right. Okay. And moved on, So I feel like, I would have loved to have met Bruce Lee, but I feel so fortunate because I was able to meet Linda Lee, Brandon Lee, and Shannon Lee. And there's probably not one day that goes by that I do not think of Bruce Lee in one way or fashion. What about you, sir? What's your Bruce Lee connection? How the vibe? How did you find him? How did he find you?
Well, as a kid growing up, I was born just a year or so after Bruce passed. And so I never got to experience those films in real time in the theater. It was more, Saturday or Sunday matinee films on TV that you would see. And, he was just an icon, by that time in the 80s, he was just part of the popular culture. But I think rather than talk about his direct impact on me, what I'd like to do is just very quickly share a quick anecdote, because I think a lot of people today, young kids growing up, the world is so inundated with stars, icons, celebrities. It's hard to appreciate what a powerful presence Bruce Lee was during that era. And so what I want to do is read a real short excerpt from an interview I did with a film director from Taiwan many years ago. He's an art film director, makes not martial arts films, just dramas and stuff. His name's Zhang Zuoji. But I asked him about his early impact of seeing films, what kind of films impacted him as a child. And this is what he said. The first movie I ever saw was Bruce Lee's The Chinese Connection in 1972. The whole movie theater was packed, and my dad and I had to sit on the aisle on the floor. I remember holding a set of plastic nunchucks in my hands. The audience was going nuts. When the Japanese appeared on the screen, they almost forgot they were watching a movie, and they all stood up to applaud for the main character, Bruce Lee, when he defeated the Japanese. I was so little I could barely see what was happening. I had to look through all of the people, but that was the first movie I saw when I was 10 years old. But just think about that scene. There's no seats, you're sitting on the floor, and the audience standing up and screaming and hollering at the screen. I've been to a lot of films in my life, but I don't think I've ever experienced a cinematic experience where the audience just exploded like that. And I think that little quote just gives you some sense of the power of his image that had on audiences, you know, in the early 70s when they were seeing these films.
Absolutely, absolutely. Professor, shall we bring on our first couple of guests?
Let's do it.
All right.
Please.
All right. Well, she is the CEO of the Bruce Lee Family Company, the author of the fantastic Be Water, My Friend book, one of the producers of the great TV series you must watch, Warrior, and she is Bruce Lee's daughter, Shannon Lee.
Hi. Nice to see everyone. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here, Shannon.
Yeah, thank you for all your kind words and you know, and I don't know, just the energy with which everyone is here tonight. It's really beautiful.
Thank you, Shannon. And our other guest that we're going to bring in right now is Nguyen. He is an award-winning Vietnamese-American filmmaker whose past work has been seen in the New York Times, HBO, NBC, Vice, PBS. He has directed, produced, and shot several short films that have played international at numerous film festivals, including MoMA and the Smithsonian. And the reason we have him here is he is the director of an incredible documentary film about Bruce Lee called Be Water. Welcome, Val.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be in such company tonight.
So maybe I'll kick it off with the first question. And you know, Bruce Lee was so many things to so many different people. Of course, to Shannon, a father, a philosopher, a teacher, a martial law artist, an actor, an icon. But if you strip away all of these different aspects of his life and legacy, one thing, and I think in that quote I read, you get a little sense of that. One thing that is always there is just the presence, this kind of, and it's so hard to put it into words, this physical aura that he had when he appears on screen. He just lights it up. You could say he's someone who had charisma to burn. It was just unlike anyone else you ever saw. And I think before we start digging into the various facets of his life and impact, let's just talk about that presence, that charisma. And of course, I know, Shannon, you were quite small when you lost your father. I don't know how much of that you remember personally, but I'm sure you've heard many, many stories over the years involved working on your film. What kind of, what you've learned about him in terms of that, both the presence and what he was like off screen. And we'd love to hear a little bit from both of you about that.
Sure. I guess what I would say is that is my most visceral memory of him, actually, is his presence, is what he felt like as you say, I had this energy that just radiated off of him. And because he was so focused, like when you had his attention and he was focused on you, like, you just felt like the sun was shining on you. And I remember that. And for years and years, my father died when I was 4 years old, but for years and years, I used to think, God, I must be a little bit psycho, because I feel like I know this person. Like I feel like I could say, oh yeah, this is what he would like, or this is how he was. But how is that possible? He died when I was so young, but it's because of that. It's like an imprint on me. And I really think, whenever you ask my mom, well, what was, Bruce Lee like, she'll say, that thing you sense from him on screen, that presence that jumps off, that energy that just like jumps off the screen, is what he was like in real life. And I think that, one of the things I hearken back to in the philosophy all the time is this sense of like cultivating the inner self and expressing it outward. Like he was whole in that way. Like he brought all of that inner energy and charisma and attention and focus and just out of himself. And it was very powerful and very palpable.
I mean, unfortunately, I never met Bruce Lee. I was born after his death. But what I wanted to find out while making Be Water was the people who knew him the best and how they felt in his presence, right? And understanding that aura. And because for me and most Bruce Lee fans, we just know his presence through on-screen personas and images that we see but to hear these stories of people who knew him so well, you kind of put the myth to a face and to a story. It matched a lot of my understanding of what I thought Bruce Lee was, but it was also creating that humanity, even with the presence and in many ways today, sort of the mythology of Bruce Lee. It's really breaking down that idea that he was a human and he was an individual that we all can aspire to in some ways. Obviously, Bruce Lee was one of a kind, but there were people that he met through his life and experiences and struggles that made that presence even stronger. Again, it's even, I feel his presence in this virtual room right now, right? With everyone from all parts of his life who were touched by it. Shannon as his daughter, Diana Lee Inosanto, who's goddaughter, and all these people in their work and their art and the way that we breathe and live today, we still feel it, and it's really amazing.
Here.
Well, it's interesting that after all these years, Bruce Lee is still bringing us together, from all over the world. And, I've had the good fortune of being able to travel a lot, and everybody knows Bruce Lee, 2-3 generations down. I have a 14-year-old daughter. She wears Bruce Lee t-shirts. She loves Bruce Lee. I mean, honestly, pop star, good looking, charismatic. And what I love about, so many things about Bruce, but he was a thinker. He was so smart. And in your book, Shannon, I'm really enjoying it. I'm only on page 29 right now, because it's like some parts I'm reading over again. It's touching me, but I really feel like you've personalized him even more. From the first from your mother's book, and then the Dao of Jeet Kune Do, I got this overall sense, and of course that energy. But I feel like you did such a great job breaking it down, in such a human level. And I so appreciate that. And it's your father working through you, touching us. Still doing it after all these years. Holy smokes. So thank you.
Oh, well, my goodness, thank you. No, I really appreciate your kind words. And, the reason that I got into being a steward of his legacy and wanting to do this work is because I have been healed, motivated, inspired by him, just like so many people have been. And I wanted people to know the full depth of the man and his, and his philosophies and his practices, and what his life was like. And I'm so grateful to Bao for his beautiful film, for shining a light on that as well, and doing such a beautiful job. And to me, that is what I'm trying to bring through, in all different mediums, whether it's entertainment, like our show Warrior, or whether it's my book, or whether it's even a t-shirt. It's like just putting that, his image is so powerful, and then his words on top of that are so powerful as well. And so thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Shannon, I wanted to ask, this is a kind of strange way to phrase this question, but I think none of us have memories of our life from the point when we're born till about 3 years old. But if you were lucky enough to be parents, we kind of vicariously reclaim that experience with our children, right? We learn what it was like, that earliest phase in life. In your case, I guess it was around the 90s, you started doing intensive martial arts training, you started acting in a whole series of action films. I'm wondering if that period in the 90s, to what extent did that allow you to kind of vicariously know your father in a different level and experience all those things he did and somehow bring you closer to him? And if you could kind of pull that period in your life together with your father's legacy, I'd love to hear you talk about that.
For sure. When my father was alive, when we were little, it was all martial arts all the time in our household. Like there were people there training in the backyard all the time, the whole family, my mom, even, like everybody did martial arts, as you can imagine. And then, of course, after he died, it was very difficult for Brandon and for me. There was a sense of sort of like, ooh, it's a lot. I don't want to. It's a lot to train again, and we were in such mourning for him, and so we didn't much as kids. Actually, a little bit here and there, but not as one would think. And really, at that time in my life, in the 90s, as you mentioned, I'm an adult, I'm coming into my own, and I wanted to know my father. And not only was my father a martial artist, extremely dedicated martial artist, but he had created his own style. And so I was like, I need to train in that to know him, and with people who trained with him. And I want to understand him as a martial artist. I want to understand, and I'm so grateful for that training in my life for a number of reasons, but in part for that. And it helped me all these many years later when I wrote the book, because I use a lot of martial arts analogies to try to exemplify some of the philosophical concepts and things like that. And so it was very, very meaningful to me to train as a way to get to know him and to touch base with him. And then, after my brother died, which was also in the 90s, I was in such deep personal pain for a long time, and really didn't know, like, how was I gonna just get on with my life? Like I was going through the motions, but inside I was just in so much pain all the time. And that's really when my father's words started to work on me. And I talk about this a lot in the book, that time. And it was really sort of it was almost like magic. If I'm going to be honest. It was like, obviously I knew a lot of his quotes and things like that, but I had never really delved into his writings. And I was just floundering around in so much pain and chaos at the time, and just thinking like, help me, please. How am I going to get through this? And lo and behold, I was handed his writings. I didn't ask for them. They just appeared. And I started reading, and it was just in that moment that, like, I was able to open myself up to to understand that my healing was in my own hands and that I needed to seek it. And I did start to at that point. And so the 90s was very, it was a time for me to understand lots of things, a time for me to understand my brother as well as an actor and what that is like, and and who he was as a human being, and all those sorts of things. So it was a challenging but rich time of discovery for me.
Mark, do you have a follow-up?
After that, I'm soaking it all in. About how was the process of taking Shannon's input and the Bruce Lee essence and putting that together into a film? I mean, what was going on in your head and your heart, putting the script together and putting these pieces together, these, so many pieces of this great man? What was that process like?
For me, it starts with just immersing yourself in Bruce Lee's life and as much as looking into what has been made previously, right? We all sort of stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. So I watched almost every Bruce Lee documentary that came out, obviously watched every Bruce Lee film and television show and everything I can get my hands on. And what I realized was like, what was missing from a lot of these previous films was like Bruce's own voice and like his perspective and like something that felt more humanistic and again, intimate and personal. I started making the film first by just editing this it's called a radio edit of just Bruce's voice telling the story as much as possible. Unfortunately, since he passed away so young, there were, as Shannon knows, there's not that many English language interviews of Bruce Lee. I mean, there's only one real one that's like, on screen that's like substantive. And I knew we had to use that as much as possible. But then, there's this beauty in hearing people talk about Bruce Lee who knew him again. So as much as we could, we used Bruce Lee's voice, but then we started interviewing people who knew him and filling in those blanks in many ways. And I mean, again, for me, it was such a privilege. And at first I was really scared, I can admit it, because the responsibility of making a Bruce Lee documentary. And I have to say that to the best of my knowledge, I'm the only Asian American director that's ever done a Bruce Lee documentary. And,
wow.
And having that, on my shoulders was, I shifted the idea of the responsibility and thought of it more as a privilege, right? That I have the privilege to make this film and make it through a perspective that I didn't think was seen before. And that was, again, through something that was more personal, but also Bruce Lee as an Asian American man in the 1960s in Hollywood, in America, and what that meant. Because I think a lot of the times when you think of Bruce Lee's story, we don't think of the context in which he lived and breathed.
That's right.
And there is so much struggle, and there's so much assumption that Bruce Lee was always this superhero and always this Hollywood icon, but no, there was a lot of rejection because of where he came from and what he looked like. And I thought that was so important as sort of a lesson to my generation and the next generation, that he worked hard. He was taught by, as much as he was a teacher, he was a student of all these people he met too. And this idea of like community that we're trying to build with this event, and today, hopefully post-pandemic, we just think about like what we can learn from each other. And I think Bruce learned so much from his students like Jesse Glover or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and even Linda, Shannon's mom. Like, you learned so much about America and what it meant to like reflect yourself as an American, and not trying to necessarily assimilate, but be yourself. And by being yourself, America can absorb that, the best of you and where you come from. I think that's a beautiful thing that Bruce taught through the way he lived. And I tried to make that part of the film, that spirit, even though we couldn't interview today, obviously, we always carry that spirit through the film and through the voices that we talk to.
Love that. Well, Shannon, you talk a lot about that in your book, about self-actualization and how your father really embodied his philosophy and his thinking in his martial arts and what he said and how he lived. Do you feel like you're doing that as well?
I'm doing my best. I mean, listen, it's not easy. That's the thing, you know, like he makes it look easy, but it's not easy. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of being really real with yourself.
Yeah.
When you've made a mistake or when you've done, you know, you haven't done your best and you know that you know, didn't respond the way you would like to respond or whatever, to actively acknowledge, accept, and attempt to do better is an ongoing process. It's a process with no end, you know, and my dad would talk about this all the time in a lot of his writings, where he would say, you know, every day there's something for me to discover. There, and he's like, and I don't know where my limit lies, you know, like there's something to learn and discover every day about life, about myself, about all of these things. And so, you know, he accomplished so much, and I think he had still a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's still teaching all of us, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and when I say a lot of the time, you know, it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's like, yes, he was an action film star, but he was a man of action. Like he put into action, you know, his thoughts, his practices, his goals. He really attempted to embody and physicalize these things. He himself had a quote that said, you know, philosophy can be the disease for which it pretends to be the cure. You know, it's like all talk and no doing.
Right.
Is you know, you sound good, but you don't get anywhere.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, a big part, I think, of the action was not just his presence in films and his philosophy and the books that he brought out and all the people that he trained and taught, but also, again, this is something Bao mentioned, was the context in which he appeared was civil rights movement, women's liberation movement, the Black Panthers, third world activism. And he was such an icon to so many different marginalized, disenfranchised individuals, and the importance of seeing an alternative to the white leading man, you know, on screen. And that power that he provided so many audiences, and not just the fact that he was a Chinese man, you know, kicking ass in all these films, but there was a political engagement. I mean, you think of him breaking the no Chinese and no dogs allowed sign, or the Dongya Bingfu, the sick man of Asia sign that he breaks, and the taking on the boss of the ice house and the big boss. All of that, I think there's a real powerful political subtext there. And I think today, in the era of Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, even last year, what happened in Hong Kong, he kind of reemerged as a figure during that movement. I'm wondering, I would love to hear both of you talk a little bit about the enduring legacy that he's had in this context as a kind of social rights figure and someone who's really pushed these issues forward.
You want to start, Bao?
Well, I think, you know, I'll just give a quick anecdote. You know, the Be Water came out June 7th, which was a week after the brutal murder of George Floyd. And I remember just feeling weird because we were promoting the film, and it just felt like a strange time to be promoting a Bruce Lee documentary. But, you know, after the film came out, I got so many really amazing messages from a lot of Black Lives Matter activists who told me, you know, during the pandemic, there was a sense of grief. And now with this racial reckoning, there's a sense of rage and anger as should be warranted. But when they watched Bruce Lee and just learned more about his life and like his struggle and just seeing his presence was really inspiring. And to think that, you know, I don't know when, you know, Bruce Lee, when he was living, wasn't walking, shoulder to shoulder with MLK or with Malcolm or Marlon Brando. He was still trying to like be himself and like raise a family and pay the bills. But in the film, there's a Jeff Chang is this great cultural critic, says like his presence was a protest. And that, I think that like really sums up like Bruce Lee as a protest figure, that he just knew by being unapologetically himself, a strong Asian American male, and setting that example and representing himself, that was such a powerful message at that time. And it still continues to be a powerful message because there's so much lack of those type of roles still in Hollywood, and it's sad. And I think a lot of people ask, oh, why do we throw in these like terms like diversity and representation? It just like, it feels like tokenism. But no, especially when a person doesn't feel like they're fully reflected on the big screen, and their stories aren't valued and their own existence isn't valued. Seeing someone like Bruce Lee kick ass is something that's so empowering. That one image can like, inspire millions of people, as we've been talking about earlier. And I think it just, again, a lot of us wouldn't be here today without those images and what it meant. And so I'm grateful for not just the life that he left, but sort of the presence he left on screen, because it's so, inspiring. I can't think of another word, but inspiring.
Yeah. I love that quote of Jeff's in your film, where he says, his very presence on screen was a protest. And, I think it's a lot about what we've already been talking about, which is it takes monumental courage to be yourself, because who you are may not be exactly what society deems, acceptable, or that they don't celebrate, or you may want to walk a path that calls to you that is, somehow different from other paths. And to walk a path alone takes a lot of courage. And so this thing we've been talking about his presence, it's like, he had sort of this innate sense of his own energy, and and a drive to cultivate it, and a drive to respect it and embody it and be it. And through doing that, he we're all talking about it tonight, right? Like we could feel him, we could see him. He was unapologetically himself, and that takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of hard work, and a lot of rejection, and a lot of being told you're not good enough, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough. And it takes an insane amount of perseverance and and belief in oneself to say, well, I'm enough for me, and we all have to be enough for ourselves. And like I think about all the actors that we're going to be talking to, and it takes vulnerability to get up and put yourself out there, to embody a character, and then consider that character is actually who you truly are. That also takes a lot of courage too. And so in that setting, as Bao said, he wasn't marching arm in arm, with MLK or any of that, but he had a lot of, he knew what was going on in his time. He had a lot of understanding, and wanted to and stood sort of energetically and soulfully with people who were wanting to claim their space in the world. And he was among them in wanting to do that for himself. And as Bao says, like, that's inspirational, that's aspirational, that's motivating, and it can be very healing too.
Thank you, Shannon. And Shannon, you mentioned we have some guests, and I think maybe it's time to start bringing them in. And Mark, do you want to do the honor of introducing our first special guest?
Absolutely. We've seen her on Star Wars, The Mandalorian. In addition, she's a director, a martial arts choreographer, a children's book author of The Curious Mind of Sebastian, which I believe she wrote with her son. She is the goddaughter of Bruce Lee and the daughter of Diana Lee Inosanto. Hey, welcome.
Hey, everybody. Hello. It's great to be here, and I loved all the real heartwarming sharing that everybody's been doing on this panel. I've been like taking notes because it triggers memories, and yeah, it's great to be here. So hello.
Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Diana.
So, Shannon and Diana, have you two ever thought of doing maybe the redoing the scene with Diana Inosanto and Bruce Lee with the sticks and the nunchucks and all that? Have you guys ever thought of maybe doing that, like your version of it, and Bao can direct it?
I love that idea. That would be great. I mean, we've done the photo, the you know.
Yeah, the photo.
Yeah, we've done that together, but
yeah. I'm gonna have to start practicing with some nunchucks if we're gonna do that.
Fun doubles, why not? You know. But no, yeah. So yeah, but we've definitely recreated the peace symbol one, and you know, it's amazing, you know, for me personally, because I'm older than Shannon, but it's amazing, Shannon, that I have seen you, you know, step into this amazing role and be one of the leaders in the martial arts world, and carrying on the memories and the inspirational works of your dad, you know, and now you got this awesome show, Warrior, and it's just kicking ass out there. I mean, literally, it's kicking ass out there. And so, you know, what was I going to say? Anyway, happy to be here, everybody.
Yay.
And we're speaking of Warrior, maybe we should bring in Andrew Koji, the star of Warrior. He is the star of seasons 1 and 2. You've seen him in the Fast and the Furious 6. He co-starred with Brad Pitt in Bullet Train. He's been nominated and awarded numerous honors for his acting. Let's bring in Andrew.
Yay.
Hello.
Andrew.
Hi, guys.
Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Hey, guys. Well, I saw you before, but hey, Shannon. Hey, Bao. Hey, Diana.
It's very late where you were too, right?
No, I'm in LA. I'm in LA. Yeah. Where are you? Yeah, this is LA time. Everyone's in LA. Yeah. How are you guys? Where's my buddies? Where's my hot boy buddies, Chen and Jason? Are they not joining yet?
They're coming soon. But what we're going to do is, as we bring in guests, we're going to kind of try to ask everybody questions. And so, Andrew, we were just talking about how Bruce Lee challenged and inverted so many stereotypes about Asian representation on screen. And I think Warrior really continues that and pushes it even further in terms of how you're consciously challenging so many of the traditional kind of stereotypes that Asian Americans have faced. And I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about that and what the burden is of trying to face some of those stereotypes or turning them upside down. How much are you conscious of that legacy, and what do you want to bring to that through Warrior?
That is an incredibly deep question. How do you do that one justice? Okay. Wow. I think, okay, if I go off tangent, let me know. But I think I've had lots of thoughts about this because I've experienced it through the industry over time, and especially in England, our opportunities in England. I think there was even a report out today about the very minimal ethnic representation that we have in England, and my first break was on this American show Warrior, thanks to Bruce Lee and Shannon and everyone. I think I think it keeps, and since then, I think that as an actor, and I'm sure Mark and Diana and Chen and Jason will, Juju as well, they'll all be able to attest. I think, you know, you get lots of briefs for auditions and things, and a lot of them can be very still stereotypical. I keep thinking Warrior was like such a unique experience because we got to really, I don't know when the next time we'll be able to play characters like that, which was like layered and kind of fully realized in a way, instead of just, oh, there's a poster, there we go. I think Mark and Diana, who you know, you've been in the industry for a lot longer than us. I think it maybe boils down to just keep doing your best work, like Bruce Lee. Like, you know, it's about just keep doing your absolute best, so that they can't box you in, you know, so that they can't kind of make you go top and all this stuff, you know. So that was a quote. That was a quote from that Bruce Lee interview. Do you remember?
Yes,
So,
I remember.
Yeah, I love that. That wasn't me being. Anyway. So I don't know. I think it's about continuing to tell our stories, to tell our stories, and owning up to it, and just doing your absolute best, so that you can't get boxed in, even if they wanted you. You know. So yeah, I've had some experiences the last couple of years doing different jobs since Warrior as well, where it feels like you're trying to get boxed in, but I'm trying to do my best work out of just working hard, not with an agenda, but just using my experience and knowledge and understanding and you know, pushing that through. And hopefully, I mean, it's weird because I'm talking to Mark Dacascos. I remember him. I used to watch Drive for hours with my friend and go, oh, look, there's a guy like us as well, you know. Real.
Thank you, Andrew. Hey, now I'm watching you, and I've got a question for you.
That's
you know,
weird,
so
yeah.
in that first episode, I mean, I love the show. I'm still in the first season, but you know, you have some of they have you doing some of the Bruce Lee mannerisms, right? That hand and, you know, sitting down on the body and all that stuff. Is that really fun to do, or is it scary to embody, you know, certain Bruce Lee characteristics without trying to be Bruce Lee or a character? I mean, how do you make that work and still be your character and not Bruce Lee? Because I think you did a great job. I just don't know how you did it.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
God damn it, Mark Dacascos. Sorry, it's surreal. Okay. God, life is fun.
You know what I'm saying, right? I mean, you're character, you're Andrew playing this character, but you're doing some of Bruce Lee's physicality. How does that all mesh together and still be this new character?
I guess it was. I mean, I think it wasn't just me. It was Shannon. It was Jonathan Tropper. It was everyone. I think we all were trying to figure out a way to do it. And we all kind of, I think, felt from the get-go that imitation, mimicry, there's just no way. Because I think I haven't even seen many of the Bruce Lee what do they call them? The Lee exploitation films. Yeah. But obviously, because he's so much in popular culture, I think it was just it was like, oh yeah, you could fall down a trap, you know, doing, you know. Right. So I think there was some things that I felt like I wouldn't be able to do unless it was mimicry. And there was some things which we kind of did my version of this, you know, his ferocity or stuff, because I can never do his, you know, that just my vocal register doesn't work. So there's all these, but that's certain things, and also the show. So it was, I think, I can't take full credit for that really. Is everyone was on the same wavelength to do honor for this guy, this amazing legend, and how do you do it right, and what's the philosophies? And I think everyone, because Shannon, you know, like Jonathan Tropper, I think all the guys on the show, Brad, everyone, they were Bruce Lee fans growing up. So I think that's the thing which goes deeper with Warrior is and what Bruce Lee meant behind this was that his philosophies, Jonathan Tropper, Brett Chan, they grew up on his philosophies. and his understandings. And I think that embedded in them an understanding of where to take it. I think, if that makes sense. So we kind of just felt, oh, we won't go too far with that. We'll try that. Oh, we can do that. Oh, this is my version of this. And yeah, so it kind of pieced together like that.
Yeah, you guys did a fantastic job. It's so seamless, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's a Bruce Lee thing, but it felt like awesome, and it works. So you get the spirit of Bruce in this other character. I mean, really, you guys. Wow.
No, Andrew did a great job, and I'll just say it's similar to what Bao said, which is like, yes, there's a certain amount of like nerve-wrackingness to try and to do that, but I think for all of us, it was like, well, we're not trying to imitate anything. We're not trying to copy anything. We just want to pay homage. We just want to throw in some fun. We want to have fun. We want to pay homage. We want to honor him. We want to bring his energy to it, but we want to all do it in the way that we do it. And everyone in the show did a phenomenal job.
For sure.
And we have a couple other contributors to Warrior in the waiting room. I think, Mark, why don't we bring everybody out? Just introduce them, and then we can really have a conversation.
All right. Okay. Our next guest, she was in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Hong Kong-born model, actress, martial arts expert. She's fantastic with the nunchakus. She's in Wu Assassins, and most recently a movie with Nicolas Cage called Jiu-Jitsu, Yuju-chan Sito, and she's newly married. Hey!
Hey!
Hi, Mark, Shannon, Andrew, Bao, Diana, Michael.
Welcome,
Thanks
Juju.
Welcome. And we're just going to keep bringing everybody out, and then we're going to hear from everyone. The next guest is Jason Tobin, who, if you follow Asian American cinema, he was in, it's hard to believe, 18 years ago, Better Luck Tomorrow, which was a landmark film in Asian American cinema. He's a British actor who has gone back and forth between the UK, Hong Kong, and the US. He is in Warrior, Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious 9. And Jason, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be in this company. So thank you so much for having me.
Okay,
and sorry, can I quickly, really, before we go any further, I quickly want to let, I really laughed just now when Andrew talked about watching Drive and seeing Mark Dacascos and thinking, oh my God, there's one of us. Because I was an extra on Drive.
No way!
I was an extra on Drive.
Hey, Jason.
And the leading actor of the movie took the time to talk to me for 15 minutes and gave me tips on like how to stretch and how to like kick. And so, Mark, I'll never forget that. Thank you so much. Anyway, let's meet some of the other panelists, please.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Okay, next guest was born in Japan, spent his young days in Guangxi, China, grew up in Tennessee. Very diverse cultural background. He was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Bosch, and in 2020's Disney Mulan, and in Warrior Season 2. This is Chen Tang.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome.
Hi, I feel like I want to like, I was like waiting, and just feel like I want to like open up a curtain and be like, hey, what's up?
I was thinking we could do a season 3, like a teaser in case we don't get one. There's a 3 Hot Way Boys here. Yeah.
That's right. And I have to be you two's babysitter for season 3.
And we also have, I think our final guest is Valentina Shevchenko, who is a professional mixed martial artist. She is a former Muay Thai fighter. She currently competes in the women's flyweight division of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and she is the current UFC women's flyweight champion. You can see her in the new Halle Berry directed film Bruised, and I've been told that she is a Bruce Lee super fan, and so we are very happy to have her with us.
Hello, everyone. A really huge honor for me to join all of you today. And yes, I am a huge fan of Bruce Lee, and he has like the huge impact in all my martial art career. It's like his idea so deep in me. So, and I try to follow it each day, each time I come to the training, each my fight. It's all full of his idea of universal fight, universal martial art.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone. And I think since we have this infusion of all these new faces and guests, it might be nice to go around and hear from our special guests. Maybe each of you can just tell us, what was the impact Bruce Lee had on your life, your career, as actors, as martial artists, and just share with us a little, however he touched you, whether it's his writings, his films. We just love to hear, maybe Diane, maybe personal experiences, but we'd love to hear from all of you.
Okay, well, where do I start? Because as a little girl, I did know Uncle Bruce, and I did see Shannon as a baby, and when she was brought into the world. So, because I was closer to Brandon's age, but oh my gosh, I could write a book on this. Where do I start?
You should.
Gold.
You know, for people who aren't familiar with our family's history, so Dad is Dan Inosanto, and he was one of several leading instructors under Uncle Bruce. And so let's just start there. I mean, he changed our family's life, because once Uncle Bruce, had passed away, it was important for my father. And I was thinking of Taki, who I want to, by the way, say rest in peace to Taki, because he just passed away. This James Lee. There were so many instructors, both from Seattle School, Oakland, and Chinatown, in Los Angeles, that, that was the part of what raised myself, Shannon, Brandon, and every day for me, in my own experience, martial arts was around me 24 hours a day. And my father had actually built this huge school in the backyard, continuing on teaching, and then later on, he finally did more of an official school in Torrance, and later on moved on and started doing seminars. But my gosh, I mean, his teachings, his philosophy, his perseverance, impacted me personally as I got older to first understand my world socially, because I was a biracial child growing up in America. And it was very tough. I don't know how it was for you, Mark, but I know my parents got married during the time when their marriage was technically a crime in other states in America. So let's just start there. And Shannon, your parents, same thing for them, right? Because they got married in Washington. So the only time I kind of felt safe was when I was around the Chinatown students, the Chinatown group, and your parents. They created a safe environment. And your brother, for me, it was wonderful to have somebody that was going through this social change in our country. And to be able to feel safe, and then to see the world that he created that was diverse, white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, people, Christian, Muslim, Jewish. I mean, that was the world I'm so happy that I saw growing up. So now let me cross over to, for instance, the entertainment field. As I got older and dared to take a chance to think that maybe I could break into the industry, and that was going back in 1987. That's how long I've been in the union. It was tough. It was definitely tough for people of color. I mean, Shannon, I'm sure you remember this. They would sometimes audition everybody of color. That doesn't matter if you were African American, Asian, or Hispanic. We would all have to basically sometimes audition for the same role, which was usually just a 4-liner, right? And so, the only safe vestige I had was maybe being a stunt woman, because I had the skill sets that my father had taught me. And so luckily I became a stunt woman, and I used that opportunity to harness knowledge of how the industry works. But finally, my mother reminded me what Uncle Bruce had said to her and Dad when he was going through a tough time. And that was when he was going to Hong Kong. And I remember as a little girl, my mom and Dad talking to your dad, Shannon, about, what's he going to do? Because, at the time it was really tough trying to take care of a family. And he would say, circumstances, hell, I make circumstances. Or as we know the line, to hell with circumstances, I create opportunities. And so as a woman, my mother reminded me of this. And that's why I dared take a chance. And I wrote, directed, and produced and starred in my own film, which was The Sensei, over 10 years ago. And thank goodness that I had his philosophy so ingrained in my head, because that's actually the door that opened for me to get casted on Star Wars, The Mandalorian. That's how they found me, was my movie, The Sensei. And I had to go back to your father, because that's what gave me the courage to just try to take risk. I mean, what a blueprint for all of us. My husband reminded me of that. You know, he really is a blueprint for all of us to follow, about taking risk, about having faith in ourselves, and daring to create something that's our own, and not worrying about an established style or system, whether that's in Hollywood or in the martial arts world. So there you have it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Jason, would you like to go next, Juju?
Sure. Oh, before I start, I want to say how much I enjoyed watching Warrior. Yeah,
Oh.
I binge watched the 2 seasons in a week. Actually, less than a week. So yeah, I can't wait to watch season 3.
And I love your work on your show too.
Oh, thank you.
I just loved it, and I'm a big supporter of your show, Mark. You too. I just love it, and I'm so happy that you're in the good fight for representation, and to see your skills. Like, I am sitting here like I'm an actor, and I've done some martial arts in the past, but to be here, I cannot sit here. I think I'm the least qualified martial artist on this entire frame right here, including you guys, everybody. So I'm just like in awe of you guys and your skill and your mastery, all of you.
You look great in Warrior. I totally love your fight scenes. All of your fight scenes are amazing.
Oh, I was carried by people greater than myself. Let's just say that. And they were like Brett Chan and his incredible stunt team, Johnny Yang, all of them. They're I mean, my God, how could you not look good with working with these guys? So
well, congratulations, and I hope one day I can work with you all too. So about Bruce Lee, oh my God, I mean, he's my idol. He's definitely the person who inspired me to do martial arts, to pick up nunchucks. I was first introduced to Bruce Lee by my dad. My dad loves watching action films. So I was about 9. I don't think I sat through the whole film that time, but I remember the scene of Bruce Lee surrounded by Japanese karate school students in a dojo and fighting off them with tons of cool moves and really quick kicks. That was Fist of Fury. And suddenly he brings out these black sticks held together by a chain and fighting everyone with this swooshing noise. That was so super cool. I just loved everything about it. And then after that, I went straight to the house and trying to find things to tie them together with shoelaces and copy the moves without busting it. So, and now as an actress, professionally, definitely Bruce Lee inspired me. Simply, it's not taking no for an answer. Bruce Lee was Chinese, a minority in the US, and even more so in Hollywood, where he was faced with a lot of racism. Things are not so bad nowadays, but as a female action actor, I'm still facing certain preconceived ideas. Early on in my career, there were a lot of times I was put into a position of proving myself or being told no to things that I knew I could do. And I know Bruce Lee gave me that courage to push back. And of course, it doesn't always work, but at least I dare to try, and I think it works for me. The other thing, which is more specific to me now, is how he managed to break through barriers, being Chinese, but still managing to become an international star, especially at a time when Chinese people weren't respected in Hollywood. Of course, things have greatly improved for Hollywood actors like us nowadays. And I know that much of that has to do with what Bruce Lee achieved. And for that, I'm extremely grateful to him. And another takeaway I personally get from him is to look forward instead of backwards. Bruce Lee was a trailblazer both in martial arts and in the Hong Kong film industry. The irony is a lot of people are trying to copy him, when I personally think he was about being unafraid to do things differently. And that's what I try to do. So Bruce Lee did Bruce Lee, and many other iconic martial artists, stars are unique to themselves, and that's what I'm searching for myself. So yes. Oh. Thank you.
Awesome. So awesome.
You want to share your Bruce Lee experience, memories, how his films have impacted you?
Who did you say?
Are you asking?
Jason.
We're good rule followers.
Jason.
We're good
Jason.
Oh, Jay. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So wow, I've been a massive Bruce Lee fan my whole life. It was actually my dad who introduced me to Bruce Lee, and like Juju, he was a massive, martial arts and action, film fan. And he also wanted to make sure that I had a Asian male role model in my life. I'm half Chinese and half English. And so right before he sent me to boarding school, where I was the only Chinese kid in the whole school, he's like, I better introduce him to like a badass Asian male role model. And sure enough, I got picked on and bullied and in boarding school. But, Bruce Lee inspired me to learn martial arts and to stand up for myself. But I feel like the biggest impact that he's really had on my life as a performer, as an actor, is the one piece of philosophy that just always rings so true for me, which is to honestly express yourself. And I tell this story about, because a lot of times people ask me how I got the role of Nguyen on Warrior. And I actually auditioned for Assam first. And I remember reading for Assam, and I thought I had done a competent job, but I knew in my heart that it wasn't quite the right role for me. And I sent in the tape, and I had this feeling that I wasn't going to get that role, but I knew that there was going to be a role in this show that would be just perfect for me. And of course, I didn't hear back from casting for months and months. And I think maybe 3-4 months passed. I had actually totally forgotten about the project. And I get a call from Alexa Fogel, the casting director. And I get a call from Justin Lin, the executive producer. And then I get a call from Jonathan Tropper, and they all want me to audition for another role. And then I thought, well, of course you do. Because I knew already that there was a role in this show that's going to be perfect for me. So, but they all gave me these notes, right? They said to me, like, Nguyen, play him chill, don't go over the top, play it really relaxed, don't go crazy. And they all three of them just kept telling me this. So I was like, okay, all right. That's not how the role read to me when I read it on the script, on the page. But I was like, you know what? I'm a professional, and I'll take their notes and I'll do it. And so I went back and I filmed my audition, and it went against my gut instinct. But I played it, and I played Nguyen like I was Marlon Brando from The Godfather, super chill. Like I was just leaning back in my chair, talking in a kind of a low voice and everything. And I sent in the audition, and I went home that night and I sat in the kitchen, and I felt terrible. I was just like, man, what the F am I doing? I do not know what the hell I'm doing. And then I get a call from Jonathan Tropper, and he goes, no, we need to see the energy of this character, we need to see. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. So they gave me the opportunity to retape, and so I sat there and I thought, you know what? If I'm gonna have the privilege and the honor and the opportunity to play this character for the next how many seasons, then I better play it the way I want to play it, the way I'm gonna enjoy it. I need to enjoy, playing this character. And I could hear Bruce Lee's voice literally telling me, honestly express yourself. And so I literally did one take, exactly the way I wanted to play it. I sent it off, and I just kept looking at my watch thinking, okay, they're going to email me any minute now, any minute. And sure enough, within the hour, I get a call. And then within 2 weeks, I was on a plane to South Africa. So thank you, Bruce. Thank you.
What a great
Thank you.
story.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Bruce. You know, he got me through my childhood, and then now he's getting me through my adulthood too now. So
Valentina, would you like to go next?
Of course, definitely. I do martial arts for already like all my life. I started when I was 5 years old. All my family, they are practicing martial arts. My older sister, she's fighter as well. Our mom, she's a fighter. So I was growing up surrounded of all martial artists. And of course, like, I don't have to mention that Bruce Lee, he is a reason why millions of people starting to practice martial arts. And like everything that he shows, it's like, first, it's a high level technique. It's flexibility, it's power, strength, beauty, and everything is something that people watched and they like, oh yes, I want to try it. And they kept in love with martial arts and keep like doing it all every time. But the most what I have from Bruce Lee, it's his idea of universal martial art, and that I know it from my coach. He was telling me in 80s, there was not like just one style, what was united everything. It was like kind of many people doing boxing, other one wrestling, other one something like that. And it was kind of like all different. But the idea of Bruce Lee of universal martial arts, what he started with Jeet Kune Do, and like starting to create that, starting to find and unite the best techniques of each martial arts. It was like, it is in me so deep. It is in my coach so deep, in all my family so deep. That's why we are every time trying to be not only just one thing, not only a striker or grappling, but everything. Now in the modern days, we could say that this is the name of this style, universal style, it's mixed martial arts, MMA. And this is like, what was his idea back then, from since the beginning. He is, I don't know, like it's say maybe the right word, but he is like a father of mixed martial arts. And for me, it's idea through everything, not just my fights, but my lifestyle. I don't want to be just something one. I want to know more. I don't want to be just a fighter who just fight. No, I want to travel. I want to learn more experiences. I want to put in myself more knowledge as I can. It's like, for me, this universal, it's reflecting in everything, martial art and lifestyle, everything. That's why for me, it's much more than just, it's whole idea. It's everything. It's feeling my life with it's my philosophy. It's true. It's my philosophy, universal style in everything. And I'm so proud that today I'm with you, all of you, because yes, definitely, it's a huge honor for me to be here. And I hope that in the future, like I can join you like as much as I can. And right now we are in travel. We are not with my team in Florida. We just have seminar teaching Muay Thai and MMA early today. And I was like, every time I'm teaching, every time I'm performing, it is just in my head. You have to show more, just one thing, just one technique. You have to teach people about how to be everything. And this is, for me, it's the greatest what I have. I think this is the most important for me.
Thank you, Valentina.
So cool.
Can I say something, Valentina? Something about my godfather?
Yes.
You know, a lot of people don't know this historically, is that he was one of the first people to really come out about pushing women in martial arts, because back in the 60s and 70s, you know, that just, it was hardly there. And so he had my father start a women's group because he really felt it was important that women learn, you know, martial arts, and that that they can be trusted and that they should be elevated. So it's amazing that I get to see in the 21st century, finally, women like Juju and Valentina, you know, in martial arts, both whether it's from the entertainment aspect or from the sport aspect. So bravo to you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I mean, I can I echo something on that too? It's like, you know, there's this that you'd hear as a kid, like this disparaging remark about, oh, you know, fight like a girl. It's like, now look, it's like, if I could fight like a girl, oh my God, I'd be a serious badass. So, you know, it's amazing how things have changed. You know, it's incredible. You know, when I travel around the world, everywhere I go, I like to, you know, check out a BJJ gym, and everywhere I go now, it's like, you know, you see so many badass women. It's incredible. And any weekend you turn on the UFC and then you see like amazing champions and goats like Valentina, and you're just like, it's amazing how in such a short time so much has changed, even though, you know, Bruce has been gone, what, you know, 40 plus years. So yeah, congratulations.
Build, right? So
yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, so important.
Thank you. Yeah, it's truly phenomenal just how many different disparate areas Bruce Lee has impacted so many people. But we do have one more warrior that we haven't heard from. Chen, do you want to?
Oh, it's not important. I love it. I mean, I'm just like soaking this all in, because even on Warrior, you know, I came in on season 2, and it is very, you know, it's nerve-wracking, but it's also very thrilling to enter a new show. And I always felt like, maybe they didn't feel this way, but I always felt like the baby on set, and you know, kind of taking it all in, you know. And they took such great care of me. But I do have a story and how much Bruce Lee and being on Warrior meant to me. Well, a little bit about me. My background is very international. I was born in Japan, but I also grew up in China. But when we immigrated here, I came to Memphis, Tennessee. I'm from the deep South. And so I came here, and there were, you know, Memphis is quite cosmopolitan. There are some Asian people, but it's a mostly Black city. And so coming from China, I hadn't really seen any kind of movies, not really until I was really here as a child. And I still remember the first time, Shannon, I saw your father on screen. And I'm sure people have said this to you ad nauseum many, many times before, but to me, it was the first time in my life that I had ever felt proud to be Asian in America. The very first time.
Wow.
And I can still remember that. Wow. And just the passion and the pride, and I was like, hey, he looks like me. And you know, I thought to myself, from then on, I was in love, you know, and I was such a fan, and I wanted to live my life with the same passion and focus and intensity that he did for life. And so fast forward, I'm not going to say how many years, to South Africa, when I had the good fortune of joining our show. And Shannon, it was the first time you had come on our season to Cape Town, and it was the first time I had met you. And I never, ever get starstruck. You know, I'm just walking just normally, and I enter the room, and I see you, and I'm just like, oh, hi. And I was so emotional.
Oh.
And it was like the end, you know, the closing of a circle. And to me, I can't tell you how much it means to me to be here, you know, in your presence with all of you guys, and just even being here. So no, I don't need to talk too much, and I'm just here to soak it all in. So thank you for all of you.
Wow. I
So
really
sweet.
feel like if we get, by the way, so we're really trying to push right now to get a 3rd season for Warrior. Like we're telling everybody, watch it, watch it, watch it. Tell all your friends, tell HBO you want season 3. And I feel like we got to get like there's such a family feel that's happening right now on this screen. And I feel like, okay, we got to get everybody, if we get a 3rd season, we're like, okay, we got to get Valentina, we got to get Diana, Juju, we got to get Mark.
Yes, yes,
I'm gonna be killing
yes,
it just like this, guys.
yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
You want to trip to Cape Town?
You know,
come and tell your friends about our
Ladies
trip.
and gentlemen.
Yeah, I always tell people that, you know, there were the Tong Wars that were going on in San Francisco, but there were also the Tong Wars going on in New York. So, you know, maybe some of the Hopway New York could look like Dana and Juju and Mark and Valentina, you know? So,
Mark Dacascos will be Hoon Lee's long lost brother, you know.
Write it, Shannon, write it.
I'm working on it.
You know, if I could jump in, we had a lot of audience questions that came in, and probably we had more questions about Warrior than anything else. And a lot of the questions were, is there going to be a season 3? What can we do to make a season 3 happen? There were questions about representation in Warrior. There were all kinds of questions about Warrior, but I'd like to ask Shannon, we know that it was based on writings and notes and ideas and concepts your father had many decades ago. Could you talk about the biggest challenge of bringing that to life and the journey you went through to finally get this made? And then maybe we could also hear from Andrew, Chen, and Jason briefly about the greatest challenge from an acting perspective in terms of how you approach Warrior. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Thank you.
Well, you know, during the initial sort of debut of Warrior and we were doing press and everything, I was saying like, so this show's been in development for 50 years. You know, my father wrote the treatment, you know, circa 1969. He pitched it to Warner Brothers. He wanted to star in it. Warner Brothers was talking about finding a vehicle for him. Ultimately, they just said, well, you can't star in a TV series because you're Chinese and American audiences won't accept that. And so that was that. But this thing he had created, which was like a very well written, typed up 8-page treatment that he pitched. And then there were, of course, multiple drafts and notes that accompanied that, which I also had, was a very well put together document. And I remember when Justin called me and he said, you know, I've always heard this story that your father had created a show and pitched it in Hollywood back in the 60s for TV. Is that true? And I said, oh yeah, that's absolutely true. And he was like, you don't happen to know what happened to that, do you? And I was like, it's in this box right over here. And so, but I remember when he read it, and then when Jonathan Tropper read it, and then when the people at Cinemax read it, like everybody was like, wow, this is really good. And I think it's so interesting, like that there's like surprise, like, oh, wow, like this is actually halfway decent. And it's like, yeah, he was super creative, very, you know, well-educated, great at choosing stories and themes to put forth that were important to him and meaningful to him. And, you know, I think the thing that was the most music to my ears was that Justin said to me, we should only do this if we can really do it justice. And if we can't, you know, then we really shouldn't, because that would just be a travesty, you know. And so we set about with a pretty high bar of what we wanted, and just we were able to find the path, you know. We found Jonathan Tropper. He was not the first person that we met with. And, you know, but it just turned out that he he was such a huge fan of the genre and a black belt and a huge Bruce Lee fan and like all of those little nods that are in the show. I remember in the first season, I'm like, he's the one like throwing them all in there. And I'm like, I feel like this is a little too much. Like, I need to cut it back just a little bit. Like, we're going to run out of things to put in here. But, you know, it was challenging, but at the same time, I think we had, much as everyone on the panel has been talking about here, it was like, we had a vision for what we wanted and we weren't going to accept less than that. If we were going to have to accept less than that, then we weren't going to do it. And it's just through, you know, finding our people, finding like minds, finding, having the right timing. I mean, I feel like if we tried to make this show 10 years ago, it wouldn't have got made. So, you know, it all just sort of, it took about 5 years to get it to the screen, by the way. So it wasn't like this, but I was grateful to have such advocates on my side. And that continued as we cast it, as we put together the crew, as we put together, you know, everybody. I mean, I think the actors can attest to this, and I'm sure that they will. It was such a family feeling, and everybody was just so, there was such an energy, and we were all so excited to be bringing this into reality. And I have to say, everyone did such a phenomenal job. I am so absolutely privileged and honored and humbled by all of you, like, really. I kind of feel like I was like, here's a treatment. Okay. You know, I feel like everybody else, I mean, without everybody just bringing the full force of their creativity and their spirits to it, it wouldn't have turned out as it did. And I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
We love you, Shannon. We love you a lot.
We love you, Shannon.
I love you guys.
I definitely echo all of that. I mean, the family, you know, absolutely. The whole cast and crew of Warrior, we have such a tight family bond. And I think one of Jonathan Chopper's sort of directives at the beginning was he had a no asshole policy. And normally there's a saying, right, in the film business that like there's always one, and if you look around a set and you don't see one, then it's probably you.
Probably you.
but on Warrior we really don't, and we have such a tight bond, and for me, like, you know, going back to, you know, Bruce Lee's philosophy, you know, Jeet Kune Do, right? You know, for me, like Valentina was saying, it's not just about the martial arts. Like that's my approach to life, and that's definitely my approach to acting. When I you know, I grew up in Hong Kong, and when I knew I wanted to be an actor, I decided to fly to Los Angeles and just study with all the best teachers that I could study, and like Bruce Lee said, take, you know, get rid of things that don't work for you, and just keep the things that work for you. And so that was my philosophy as I, you know, learned acting and became an actor. But then when I got to the set of Warrior, it was the same thing. It was like I got to watch all these amazing artists and actors, and I could, you know, I had the opportunity to learn from all of them. You know, each actor has their own particular kind of magic and chemistry, and so, you know, watching Andrew do his thing, and watching Hoon do his thing, and Kieran, and then season 2 seeing Chen, and you know, I'm constantly learning and using the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do to be selfish, and like, you know, I want that. I'm like, thank you, you know, and then hopefully to like share what I have with everyone else. And it is like Chen said earlier, it's like full circle, you know, that, you know, here we are, in 2020, 2021, representing, and, riffing on Bruce Lee's works from 50 years ago. And yeah, it's again, I'm going to echo what everyone's been saying, just honored, privileged, and humbled by it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, the cast and crew were such a tight family, but man, our fans, we have such great fans. They're family too. It feels like a family. I don't know what it is. It just feels like a family there too. And I just to echo off everybody, that family vibe. That this is my first, series as a regular, and apparently this is not always the way it is. When you just have this kind of really just a tight knit group. Our show, we did so much, and we punched literally above our weight. So and I know I get this question a lot with oh my gosh, well, this is season 3. Is this because everybody can see when you see a show like this, and you can see just that passion that's like everybody really, really, really just enjoys the show when they in the creation of it. And there's something about it. There's a thing that you can't describe of just that chemistry. So God willing, I know we all want to come back. We all want to go back.
I think, I don't know, I've had lots of deep thoughts, I don't know.
No, really?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, my warrior family knows that I try and keep off social media because I'm not really into it. But I've heard interactions and what people think, and I think and tonight, even tonight, right now, and the fact that we're all here, it just, for me, something clicked, and I was like, the fact that one dude, your father, Shannon, 50-something years ago, more, just lived himself fully and was honest to himself, and we're all here right now talking about this, and it's affected all of our lives, inspired all of our lives, individually, brought us all together, millions across the globe, or in Japanese there, globe. I think is so profound sometimes, and I always kind of parallel Bruce Lee to like a kind of martial arts Mozart, someone who, even if let's say 500 years from now, people might not know his name or whatever, or Mozart, even further before, like there's been influences along the way. Someone heard that person's music, heard his music, heard it, influenced them, changed them. That's the same as Bruce Lee, I believe. It's like, martial arts, his philosophy, his what he was about, his acting, his creativity. I think just connects, and a warrior, I think, is just an extension of that. And I think, and I have, I'm just, and for the fans, I'm just an actor. I'm in between agents, and I'm trying to figure out life myself. So I don't have the power to kind of like go, yeah, let's do a season 3. Let's do it. Let's make it 5 million there, 2 million. So I'm having to just, I've had to make peace with him. Go, you know what, if the fans make enough noise, if there's the people at the top who hear it and want to make that, it's so many things outside of our control. And I think, but I just know that regardless of if we do, I know that I feel like we all want to, and I believe for Bruce, for the legacy, for Shannon, for what the show is about, on a deeper level, needs to have a conclusion and should have a conclusion. But I do believe, get it choked up now, sorry. I think
nobody wants to see that, Koji.
I want to see that.
Sit down on that instinct.
Well, let me finish that thought. I think even if we do it, we don't. I think there'll be people who watch the show from years now, and they'll see, like we saw Mark, growing up, and like all the influences that each of us have had. I think there'll be people who watch Warrior and will inspire them to continue the journey and keep. I think that's all it's about. And maybe you guys are more veteran esteemed colleagues, I don't know what you call them, could attest to. But I think sometimes the more I'm learning about life, it seems to be all about you just carrying the torch, you know. And I think Warrior, regardless of the impact, season 3, whatever, it's like we did our best, we made our stamp, we put it down there, and hopefully it will inspire others. You know, that's what, as Toy says, to inspire others. So yeah, that's my little thing.
That's beautiful. And I just have to say, you know, it's easy for some people maybe in a more Hollywood elite mind frame to write off our show a little bit because it's action, because it's martial arts, you know. But that would be wrong thinking. Our show is first of all so much more than that, and it does carry the energy of Bruce Lee, which is also so much more than that. And everything you just said, Andrew, is absolutely right. We are one of the only shows to have such a, in the 1 hour category, TV category, to have such a vast Asian cast. And you know, we are telling a Chinese American story about the Exclusion Act. I can't even tell you how many times when I tell people that the show takes place in the 19th century, right before the Chinese Exclusion Act, where I would say 9 out of 10 people say, what's the Chinese Exclusion Act? Like, so there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of meaning. It's a meaningful story. And martial arts is a beautiful form of expression. And the action in this show moves the story and the characters forward. And so to just say like, oh, it's whatever, it's some Bruce Lee martial arts thing, I'm not into that. Like, our show has drama, it has complex characters, it's historical and relevant in so many ways. So yes, you all are inspiring new generations of people in all of you, not just the people in Warrior, but all of you are inspiring people by being yourselves and by expressing yourself honestly out in the world. And people are seeing that, you know, whether it's as a fighter, whether it's as an actor, whether it's as a director. And I'm just keep doing what you do. It's like what you said, Andrew. It's just keep carrying the torch, keep being the torchbearer for your own creativity.
You're here.
You know, may I add to everything that you folks have said? Boy, touches my heart. But you know, in addition to, of course, the physicality, I find that, you know, Bruce Lee, he brought a certain respect and kindness to his characters. And I think that's, you know, that he embodied, because yes, he could fight, but he still had respect for other people, and he was kind, and he had a sense of humor, and you saw the gentleness in his eyes. And, you know, Shannon, at the top, I was saying that there's probably not one day that goes by that I don't think of your father somehow. And a lot of it has nothing to do with martial arts. It has to do with, you know, as you so eloquently put in your book, being present and being aware, and, you know, taking people in. And I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know if I have it correctly, but one of the quotes was to daily hack away at the unessential. And I love that, because as a human being, as an actor, it's like taking the veneer off of my personality or whatever and giving you my heart. And for me, that's, you know, in addition to the martial arts, Bruce Lee, for me, gave so much insight into humanity and is still helping me find my heart. And your book's doing that too.
Can I just say, I just off what you were saying, Mark, it just inspired some thoughts. Was like that if anyone, the viewers, I'm sure everyone here on the panel has seen, you know, the black and white interview. Piers Burton, is it his name? Piers Burton. That was one of my main study points for really himself. And I keep seeing it every now and again, just reminding like he because the characters he plays in the films is one thing, but then him and how he conducts himself in that interview, such a dignified, fierce gentleman. But what I found so amazing about him was his lack of bitterness about the world. He was going through so much more than like the actors, the younger actors, me, Jason, and Chen, like, and Zuzu, that we've been through. You know, the racism, the adversity, but you hear his answers, and he's not bitter. He's like, no, I'll walk on, and that's his philosophy, the walking on. I find that so admirable, really, to carry on as well.
You know,
I've stopped talking. I'm just registering it.
Besides Warrior extending the legacy of Bruce Lee, you know, it made a kind of unexpected appearance in outer space recently. I see Diana has Baby Yoda behind her. And which is a question, it was literally
I gotta agree with them now. I've been sending them as gifts. I love it.
So one of our audience questions was for Shannon about what they thought of the Bruce Lee legacy going into this world of Star Wars, but I'm going to be a little rude and I'm going to redirect it to Diana.
Please.
And what it meant for you to bring pieces of Bruce Lee's world into this whole nother universe that I know many generations of kids have grown up loving. And could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, I can. Yeah. Geez. Well, I will tell you this because, you know, Dave Filoni, who was the director of the episode I did with Rosario Dawson, you know, he and George Lucas and Jon Favreau, they all love your dad. And so when we were preparing and talking about doing this fight scene, you know, I brought up, you know, how your father, you know, was also wonderful cinematically of learning and adapting, you know, the work of other filmmakers coming out of Japan, you know, and I believe he applied that beautifully in some ways philosophically to the scene he did with Chuck Norris, you know, and taking those beats, you know, not always having to rush it, but you know, almost at the fight scene alone becomes the dialogue. And so we talked very extensively, Dave and I, about that kind of approach. So yes, I know we mentioned and you hear in the press all the time, Kurosawa, but I will also say that we did talk about your dad and his approach to fight scenes, because even though the filming cinematically has that Kurosawa approach, the fight scenes itself, the way, you know, that we try to approach the dialogue of, you know, kind of being measured and really thinking this out, was absolutely applied to what we did between Rosario and I as Ahsoka and the magistrate, Morgan, and the stunt team also that I was working with, because, you know, they were kind of trying to build this fight scene in a way custom made to my natural attributes. I got to give it up to Ryan Watson, because, you know, he's also very familiar with the philosophy, and many of the students also have trained under my dad, which means they also indirectly had trained under your dad's philosophy. So they knew the whole idea and approach to, you know, adapting and trying to put together this beautiful fight scene. And it is kind of weird that I remember I was thinking on the set going, oh my gosh, what would Uncle Bruce think about this? This is just crazy. This is just crazy, you know? And so it was such a joy to be able to talk about your dad's influence in fight choreography and how I really felt that he was really there, you know, and Rosario and I talked about that too. And it is kind of strange. It's actually quite surreal, to be honest with you. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it was a joy to be able to talk about this and apply philosophically Jeet Kune Do to the fight that I did with my character in Ahsoka. And it's one I'll never forget, that's for sure, you know, definitely.
Awesome. Right. So cool.
Does that answer? It's a long pause. I'm like, sure.
No, it's amazing.
Not
It's
enough.
awesome.
I will check this. While everybody was making a big deal about discovering Baby Yoda's name, I was freaking out at home because I never knew my name. They never told me my name. I just knew I was the magistrate. I had no idea until Rosario said Morgan Elsbeth that was my character's name. Never knew. That's how secretive we are on this thing.
Wow.
Thank you, Dave, John Favreau. But yes, so I was like, "Did you hear what my name was?" So there, yeah. So that was really strange. Yeah, I'm kind of wild.
Oh my God! Can you believe that? As an actor, just don't even know your character name.
No idea what my character's name was, other than that she was her name was the magistrate, and that she was, making problems. That's all I knew. So,
Valentina, in your professional fights, has there ever been an instant where you've felt like you're channeling Bruce Lee? I mean, in an actual fight, maybe you're doing a move or something. Has that ever occurred, or are you so in the moment with what's happening right there? I'm just wondering if that spirit ever, you do the Assam Bruce Lee thing. I don't know. Just in that, because his spirit is so strong, and like as you said, he influenced you a lot. I'm just wondering if that ever comes out in any of your fights.
For me, I learned my experience in all fights that you have to be present in that moment. And this is the same thing that Bruce Lee is teaching, right? You have to be present everywhere. And it's like, if you're, for example, a fight, it's just a second. You can be successful or you can lose everything just in a second. And you just cannot, your mind let it like think different things. It's like when a pilot flying a plane, he cannot like think, oh, what a beautiful view, what's like the war pilot, right? Oh, what a speed, what a great things I'm doing. No, he has to be aware of what he's doing because it's important to have control on his movement on the plane and everything. For the fighters, it's the same. For me, it's the same thing. I have to be in the present moment because I have to study my opponent. I have to be exactly sure what she's doing in what moment and be ready to react properly. But in my trainings, I'm training everything, all techniques, all skills, just to be ready. Not my mind, but my body has to be ready to react properly because it's happening so fast, everything. I don't have time to think about what I gonna do next. My body has to decide. That's why, in the moment of the fight, for me, it's very hard to think about different things. For example, when we are fighting and the crowd, I cannot think about the crowd. I cannot see, oh, what a beautiful venue, how much people, all this, and they all cheering for me. I cannot. It's for me, when it's ring or octagon, it's just me and my opponent, and this is everything that I have to know about my fight. But definitely it's afterwards I thinking, oh yeah, I could do this thing, I could make this expression or something like that. But then come in the next fight and I do the same, no expression
right. Gotcha. So you're never in that moment where you punch, kick, and then you put the arm bar and you're going, this is just like Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon with Sammo Hung.
I wish to have that moment, but unfortunately when I have the arm bar, I thinking about how make her tap. Because I know if I would think about something different, she could escape, right? And I could lose the position. So I have to choose.
That's right. That's right. Let's see. It seems, Professor Berry, that let's see. We have some more time.
I think that we got a request that Valentina has to step out in a moment, so they wanted to do a quick photo, a group photo,
yes.
And then we'll maybe have a final question or so. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right.
You get it?
Oh, the air went out of the room, guys. Relax, relax.
Mark, maybe we should bring it to a close with a final question. What do you say?
Final question. Yes. All right.
I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm wondering, maybe we can just go around the room.
Yes.
Everyone can share what scene in a Bruce Lee film is the most indelible, most powerful. When you think of Bruce Lee, what is that? Could be a fight sequence. It could be an interview clip. What is it that you always come back to? And I know we have many of you who are not just actors, but martial arts practitioners. Maybe it's a scene you studied and you rewound over and over again and analyzed, but maybe each of you can share what is that moment, that cinematic piece of history that stayed with you over the years and you've continually come back to. So.
Whew, that's a hard one.
That was a pretty in-depth question there, man.
So many amazing fight scenes and incredible moments. Like, how do you choose? I don't know. It depends on the mood I'm in too, you know? But I guess I have to say for myself, so I guess I'll start going. I love the fight scene with Chuck Norris. I know I brought that up earlier. And just because I've discussed that fight scene with my father, and the symbolism of that fight and the whole, you know, it was almost like supposed to represent like the birth of one's personal Jeet Kune Do, you know, learning to adapt and not trying to copy or imitate the other opponent's style or system, but really learning how to adapt in real time. And so for me, that's the scene that I love from Return of the Dragon. Yeah, with Chuck. So for me.
Yeah.
Jason.
For me, the fight in the dojo in Fist of Fury, when he comes in and he's got the sign and he says, you know, Chinese are not the sick men of Asia, and he just proceeds to school them. Like, to me, this is so inspiring, you know, like, and just the very definition of badass, you know, just pure badassery. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. What's that?
Circling shot, boom, boom.
Yeah, totally. It's so cool, so cool, so cool.
I think for me, the interview, the black and white interview, is what comes to mind. The very classic empty your mind part. It's just it's not so much actually what he says, is actually just the way he says it and about it. It's like a laser. And you can see, I was like, wow, this guy's just, that's what it looks like to see a person really live like a fully their truth. And to see that.
The Piers Burton.
Yeah.
Sorry?
The Piers Burton one.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Have you, I'm sure everyone's sorry not to cut, but I'm just going off have you seen the screen test? I think they made a color version of it.
So fast.
He was 22 or 23. I've never seen someone that confident, like just, and that kind of at 22, 23. Most people go into auditions like, hi.
He owned it. He absolutely owned that audition. I loved it.
Yeah.
Like you forget how young he is when he's, you know, doing all these amazing things. But like it's just wow to see that. I guess it's just like life force, you know, to just see it in action. You can see what your eye is just drawn right to it. And the second scene that always stuck out in my mind is Enter the Dragon, you know, at the end when he kind of holds up and just the size of his forearm. That's like it looked like it was made of like rope, like ropes roped together, you know.
Well, that whole dungeon sequence in Enter the Dragon just blew me away, from open hand to the staff, the sticks, the nunchucks. I mean, I could watch it I'm going to watch it right after this.
Yep.
Still blows me away.
Yeah, very dynamic.
Can I tell not it's a story I'm sure everyone knows, but I think it was in Be Water, my friend Shannon. It was the fact that he and I just love it's one of all the films, but this story just came to my mind. I thought this was such an amazing move was the fact that, they didn't, with Enter the Dragon, they were going to film, but they were going to rejig it. The studio wanted to do their thing. They had their thing, but he decided to stay at home and say, nah, I'm willing to let it go. Because if they're going to do it, it's got to be this way. It has to be this way. And I'm thinking, that takes some real cojones, It's like, that is like amazing. I love those kind of stories.
Yeah. My father refused to show up on set for Enter the Dragon until they put the script changes in that he had wanted.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that now.
Chen, you created a monster.
You're going to see OG fired from looking for a new job, new agent,
Downfall started here.
So for me, I think it's the same dojo scene for sure, because that's how it introduced me to nunchucks, and also that because I speak Cantonese, so when he said Chinese is not segment of Asia, it's just so strong. It's to me, Fist of Fury is definitely one of the best scenes that I like of Bruce Lee. And then the other one, it will be the Ice Factory fight in The Big Boss. Inside the factory, they use like a ton of brutal weapons. It was so cool. I think it's one of the most bloodiest Bruce Lee scenes. I love they use the environments and use all the weapons or things they can find to fight. That's cool.
And I believe we have one more special guest. We'd like to bring in Bruno Willow. Is that correct? Bruno Willow?
So Guido, I think. He's a stuntman, and I believe he has a question. Bruno, are you there?
My mic is, I think, on and off.
There you go.
There he is.
Hey guys, what's up? Can you hear me?
Welcome, Bruno.
Okay, my heart is going like, papa, papa, papa. Okay. I had to stop myself with a couple of beers. I guess I need like 4 more. Give me a break. It's 3 a.m. in Portugal, so it's guys. Thank you so much for this. It's a true honor. Thank you, Asian World Film Festival. I should just say that I became a stuntman, obviously, because of your father, Shannon. Because when I was 9 years old, I guess me and my grandmother, we were out of cartoons to watch in the movie theater. So we went to watch this movie where the poster was this guy doing a sidekick with a son behind him. You remember which one it was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. So Jason Scott Lee got me started in that. And I was like, okay, screw soccer from now on. I was 9 years old, so it changed my life forever. I had to know everything about Bruce Lee. Obviously, it's very tough for me to ask a question to you. You've been asked everything about your father. But I wrote it down because I'm so nervous. But yeah, Bruce Lee's philosophy had so many layers that a fan would struggle to grasp a text's full meaning. Every once in a while you listen to it and it's like, wow, it's even tough to understand everything or to grasp its full meaning. So do you recall any text or sentence of his texts, being a 10th degree black belt in your father's philosophy like you are, that you struggled with understanding or even applying in your own life later on?
Well, for sure. I would say almost all of them because as you say, they're multi-layered. So a lot of the time you hear his philosophy, like even the be water quote, right? Like empty your mind, be formless, shapeless like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes a cup. Water can flow, can crash, be water. It sounds amazing. And you kind of just know that it's awesome. And you may even think like, oh, water, yeah, water. Okay, water, yeah, can be really strong or it's flexible. But then like you live a few more years and you have like another layer and then another layer. And then I'm like, even, like in writing the book, I'm like, okay, you put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. What does that mean? Like, and the thing is that it only really matters what does it mean to you and what can you get out of it? And there's no wrong thing to get from it, you know, and your level of understanding of it is perfect for where you're at in this moment. And I've had the experience of sitting with his writings where I'll be reading them and I'll be like, wow, this one quote is really hitting me right now. This is awesome. This is amazing. And then a month later, another quote that I've read 1,000 times that I've been like, yeah, it's a great quote. All of a sudden, because of something I'm going through, because of something I've learned, all of a sudden I'll go, ooh, that one. That one's hitting me right where I live right now, you know? And the way he spoke was so poetic. It was so beautiful. And like, you have to kind of sit, but it's dense. You kind of have to sit with it a little bit. Like, what does he mean when he says, you know, it's like acting, unacting, or unacting, acting, you know, like, I know what I think it means. I'm sure everybody here has some idea of what it means, but it doesn't matter what it, quote, means. What does it mean to you?
Exactly.
What can you take from it? And so, you know, there've been all sorts of stuff. Like right now, I'm really into Wu Wei, which he talks about a lot in his writings, which is a Taoist principle of, you know, sometimes it's translated as non-action, but really it's like natural action or perfect action, action that you take because that's the natural action that's called for in that moment. And because it's in harmony with everything around you. And you asked me that like 10 years ago, I'd be like, well, Wu Wei, the definition is non-action.
Don't do anything.
But how much can I take from it? Now I take from it and I'm like, oh yeah, like it's hard for me even to express like what it means to me, but it now means so much more. So yeah, there's a lot that I've been like, at different times I've been like, that seems really cool. Maybe one day I'll understand that.
Thank you so much. It's actually, it makes, I completely feel it, because it's like one of those great songs or great movies that you watch so many times that every time you watch, you're oh, I didn't caught that one, that little tiny detail in the last time I saw it. So you're always keep piling it in. And the way you said that it depends on where you are in your life, the way you accept and interiorize the teachings, it'll be different each time. So thank you so much for this.
Oh, my pleasure.
Can I? I just want to say, just because life's short, and I felt like I wanted to say it to a while to you now, Shannon. And especially after reading "Be Water, My Friend," and you know, and it's always been so fascinating to me, you know, being, you know, I know you're the child of, you're Bruce Lee's child, and it's always, I've always kind of thought of, you know, those people who are the children of these great people. I was like, oh, that could be a burden and a curse, but then a great privilege. All these things must be all these things. And I remember there was a moment when I think you almost, is in the book, not to give away any too many spoilers, but like you could have chosen not to continue and do this Bruce Lee Foundation, and that there was a choice. You could have thrown away. I, being quite a hot-headed dude, I might have just thrown away those notes and forgotten about it. And then, but the fact that you've continued on this legacy and then you've helped spread, you know, it's I think you've done such a beautiful job, and you've brought people together. You know, I know Jason, Chen, and their careers are going to do, I think, with the fact everyone here, I just think I'm so grateful to you and for what you've done.
Here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's so lovely. And I have to tell you, I mean, look, I've matured a lot over the last few decades. Been at different places with all of this at different times in my life. But I think this was touched on before, and I think it's very obvious when you see everyone here in the way that they've shared that the Bruce Lee legacy is really about love. It's really about the heart, giving your heart. And, you know, one of the things, because I've been delving a little bit into some more Buddhist teachings just to understand them. And one of the things that I loved was when I found out that in Buddhism, when they talk about the mind is actually located in the heart. And that's where the soul lives. And so to me, it's like, you know, they say Bruce Lee's kicking ass left and right, and he's, you know, ripped to high heaven and all these weapons and primal screams and all of these things. And then there's this very intellectual side and this writerly side and this poetry and there's philosophy, but all of it came from the heart. Yeah. And we are all adding to that, and we're all coming from the heart, and it's freaking beautiful. So thank you. I take that in, but my God, you guys are all part of it too. Like when I said in South Africa when we were on set, I'm like, welcome to the family, everybody. Like you're part of the Bruce Lee family now. Like it's really true. And you all come with such strong and fierce hearts, and I'm so grateful for it.
Thank you. I have a
amazing.
My husband's being texted. There's a bunch of people texting him going, ask Diana to ask Shannon, like, to get Warrior to be season 3. Where do they need to direct the traffic? Let it, you know, where should they go? You want to say, we want a season 3. Who should they be to? Who should
Yeah. So, and anybody else jump in here if you know something more or know other things. I know that so you can tag and request on social media to add HBO. I know HBO has a feedback link on their site too, so you can email them and you can say, you know, here's my feedback, this is what I want. And you can watch the show and get as many people to watch the show as possible, because that's a big part of it too. It's like, if there are 10 passionate people making a lot of noise, and they're the only 10 actually watching the show, HBO is going to go like, well, it's great, those 10 people really want this show, but you know, they're looking at numbers also. So views, right? Like watch the show, tell everybody to watch the show, and then also make some noise on social media, tag at HBO, email them, and let them know.
Yeah.
Thanks. It was, and George, before we go, George would like to wrap everything up for us. But thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your heart. And Diana Lee, thank you for sharing your godfather. And Shannon, thank you for sharing your dad. And thank you all for being part of Warrior and martial arts and the Bruce Lee legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay, what Shannon was saying about HBO, they've posted on Facebook right now like 3-4 times the link. So go to when you go to see this Q&A, you will see the link. It's been posted at least 3-4 times. We've been followed by a lot of people, guys. I mean, this was epic. You know what epic is? This is epic.
What is epic, George?
For someone who's 70 years old, epic means El Cid, means Spartacus. That's what's epic. So this is epic.
That's epic.
That's epic. So anyway, thank you so much, all of you. I'm not going to name you. You know, we love you very much at AWFF, and we truly hope that we will see you in November 2021 at the festival, all physically, and we will do another tribute to close this year's tribute. This is what we're planning to do. And guys, the one who are not in Warrior, like Juju and Diana and Valentina, don't forget the 10% for AWFF if you're cast in it, okay?
Why don't we get you over there too? Why don't we get you over there too, George?
Anytime. I mean, if they want me to direct one of the episodes, I'm ready to do it. If I have time, because AWFF takes my whole life. So anyway, I am from the bottom of my heart. Thank you all. Mark and Michael, you were amazing moderator. Shannon, you, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, there are no words. Guys, you were incredible. And Bao, you and your silence, you meant a lot. I mean.
And by the way, go watch Be Water, ESPN 30 for 30, Be Water, Bao Nguyen. He made an amazing film. Go watch it,
Yes,
everyone.
it is actually.
Beautiful.
I cried about.
We're screening it at AWFF at the end of the month to close this tribute of Bruce Lee. So thank you. Follow us, please. You are our family also. And again, a million times, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
The best martial artist of his time.
He's full of energy.
Poetry in motion.
Peaceful.
Philosopher.
Fierce.
Determined. Very unique individual.
Innovator.
Amazing martial artist.
Humble.
Fearless.
Iconic.